don't know. Billions of people have tried that experiment. It's never worked. Not once. Not once. And yet we keep putting that car on the road hoping it'll go. To put the argument into a logical form. Premise number one. There is in the human heart a desire for something which nobody ever gets in this world. Something which can't even be imagined. Call it heaven. All right, describe heaven. Write about it. Nobody has ever written a good fiction about heaven. I don't want to live in any of your heavens or in mine. They'd be boring. I want never to be bored forever. I can't imagine that, but I want it. So we all want something we have never experienced and we can't even imagine. Premise number two. If you look at all human desires, you can classify them into two categories, natural and innate. The natural desires come from human nature. Natural and unnatural. The unnatural desires come from outside, from society, from advertising. I want to fly through the air like Superman. I want to go to the land of Oz. I want a World Series championship for the Boston Red Sox. These things are impossible. They will never happen. They don't exist. But I still desire them. Why? Because somebody has provoked me to desire them. But not everybody desires to fly through the air like Superman or go to the land of Oz or win a World Series. Any desire that's in everybody is innate. Desire for food, for drink, for sleep, for sex, for knowledge, for society. And there's always a corresponding state of deprivation for all natural desires. There's no such thing as Ozlessness or Supermanlessness, but there is such a thing as sleeplessness or sexlessness or knowledgelessness. It's called ignorance. It would be very, very strange indeed if, upon visiting some other planet, we found some creatures that had a passionate desire for food, but they didn't have stomachs. Or a race of creatures with only one sex who were constantly falling in love with a non-existent second sex. Couldn't be imagined. All right, so every innate desire corresponds to something real. You might not get it. You might die of starvation, but if you're hungry, there's food. Right? Put the two premises together. We all want something that can't be had in this world. Anything we all want that is a natural desire exists. Therefore, there exists something that can't be had in this world. There is another world. I don't know how you can get out of that argument. I don't know why you'd want to. Final argument from one of the most complete minds that ever existed, St. Augustine, who had both an incredible intellect and an incredible heart. Medieval statuary always pictured him with a Bible in one hand and a burning heart in the other hand. I know of no one who had simultaneously a more brilliant head and a more passionate heart. I call this the existential argument. Let's begin with Augustine's definition of man. Man, for Augustine, is a living tragedy. Everybody is a living tragedy. Not only are there specifically tragic people like King Lear or Hamlet or Antigone, but all of us, necessarily, inevitably, into the human condition, there is the following tragedy. Either your life is happy or it isn't. If your life is happy, you don't want to die, but you have to die. And the happier your life is, the more tragic death is. If your life is miserable, death isn't so bad. So life is miserable either way. But more seriously, I mean, that is a serious argument, but more substantively, no man is an island. We need a world. We are not our own world. We need a home to make us happy. Now, there's a lot of things in nature that make us happy. There's magnificent things in nature. We're made happy by sunsets and stars and storms. But not completely. We feel like orphans, like displaced persons, like wanderers. We're pilgrims. We're looking for something better. We're trying to make the world better all the time. Maybe we're succeeding, maybe not. I sort of think we're not, because we keep taking vacations in, quote, unspoiled places. Well, why do we prefer to live in spoiled places? Anyway, the world, though very beautiful, isn't enough. It doesn't fulfill us. It also thwarts us. It gives us pleasure, but it gives us pain. It gives us life, but it gives us death. If we ask nature, are you in favor of life or death? How many things have you brought into existence? How many things have you given life to? And it'll give a number, trillions and trillions. Okay, and how many have you killed, or are you in process of killing? And it'll give you a number, exactly the same number. In other words, nature is like Rhett Butler in Gone with the Wind. Frankly, my dear, I just don't give a damn. We do. We prefer life to death. We prefer beauty to ugliness. We prefer health to disease. Nature doesn't. Nature, says Augustine, is like a great river. On this river, everything exists. Plants and animals and arts and cultures and civilizations and people. And the river gives all this great stuff to us, and then it takes all this great stuff from us. It's not enough. All right, if we can't find our personal fulfillment, existential fulfillment in nature, what about human society? That's higher. Greater joys come from human love than from anything else. You'd rather be in love in the South Bronx than divorced in Hawaii. Is that enough? The world makes your body sort of happy. Human society makes your soul very happy, but it also makes it very unhappy. What are the biggest pains in your life? Your relatives, your family, your friends. The source of your greatest pains as well as your greatest happiness. People disappoint us. They fight wars, little ones and big ones. Betrayal, divorce, suicide, injustice, sin. Okay, we want more than that. The Stoics and the Buddhists say, yes, this is the correct analysis. Nature cannot fulfill us, society cannot fulfill us, but we find within ourselves something that fulfills ourselves. New Age people say that too. You can escape into the self. You find beauty, truth, and goodness within. You find the God within. No, you don't. You find the love of God within. You find the love of beauty, truth, and goodness within. But you also find the lack of it, the yearning for it. Romeo loves Juliet. That doesn't mean Romeo is Juliet. Even the Hindu mystic says, I don't want to be sugar, I want to taste sugar. Therefore, I don't want to be God, I want to taste God. But it seems we can't taste God. Obviously, the only answer that's going to fulfill the human heart is God. The only thing big enough to fit this infinite Grand Canyon in our souls is an infinite being. But, to quote the punchline from the classic New England joke, you can't get there from here. Not only you can't get there from here, we betray God. We are not good, we are evil. We are not true, we are false. We are not beautiful, we are ugly. We are a living koan puzzle. We must have God, we can't have God. We're homing pigeons for God. We're iron filings and God's the magnet. If there's no God, our deepest hopes are thwarted. So there is a God, yeah, but you can't get there. There's ignorance, there's weakness, there's sin. The worst barrier to our fulfillment is not the pains that come from nature or the injustices that come from human society. The biggest barrier is ourselves. And if you don't know that, well, then you're even more foolish. There's only two kinds of people in the world, Socrates thought: fools who think that they're wise and the wise who know that they're fools. And Jesus said the equivalent of there's only two kinds of people in the world: saints who know that they're sinners and sinners who think that they're saints. In other words, we're sinners. It's an unpopular word. We're wicked. Love that word. I got 4 kids. One of my daughters is verbally handicapped, and she said the wisest thing any of my kids ever said. She was about 5 or 6. She was in a group that did Saturday enrichments, and the kindergarten teacher took them around, and I was the chauffeur. And there was one of the 6 kids or so that was a real terror. Her name was Emily. She used to poke people's eyes out and pull their hair and whatnot when the teacher wasn't looking. And the teacher was one of these nice psychologists that kept saying, Emily, that's not what we do here. That's not appropriate behavior.